Hi folks, welcome to Crisco's Corner, unfiltered commentary, and not your truth, the real truth. Please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thank you for your support. Hi folks, welcome back to Crisco's Corner. This article I found from USA Today, of all places, what I would exactly call a bastion of conservative values. It's an opinion piece, I'm going to say so up front. Well, the entire network of CNN's an opinion piece, but I digress. The opinion. This piece expresses the views of its author or authors separate from those of this publication. Now, does it mean they disagree with it? No. But I think this is interesting, by Heather McDonald. And it's from July of last year. There is no epidemic of fatal police shootings against unarmed black Americans. They go, oh my God, John, look. There's a video there where they arrested George Floyd. That was the beginning video. If you go back here, you'll see. I won't play it, but it's when they first interacted with him. Security footage. Well, let's read the opinion piece. Ideally, officers would never need to take anyone's life, of course. But the data on police killings doesn't support reducing or abolishing law enforcement. Whether this was July of last year or last week, statistics and numbers are still the same. Let's read on. The video of George Floyd's tragic death under the knee of a Minneapolis police officer has held many to ask whether it represents the tip of an iceberg of police brutality. For centuries, law enforcement was interwoven with slavery and segregation, and that memory cannot be easily erased. Well, it's not a memory that's passed on when you're born, all the memories from your parents. They read about it, and a lot of it's just blown out of proportion. You know, those horrendous things done in the Jim Crow South especially. By Democrats, I might add, local and state elected. Interwoven with slavery and segregation, and that memory cannot be easily erased, but the evidence does not support the charge that biased police are systematically killing black Americans in fatal shootings. Much of the modern policing is driven by crime data and community demands for help. The African American community tends to be policed more heavily because that is where people are disproportionately hurt by violent street crime. Yeah. Now, we can go on the reasons why, social, economic, but we're just talking about police, because that is where they're disproportionately hurt by street crime violence. In New York City in 2018, look at these numbers. This isn't a million years ago. This is just true today as it was any other time in the last 20 years. 73% of shooting victims were black, though black residents only comprise 24% of the city's population. Now, you tell me how that statistic is anything to do with police. Nationally, African Americans between the ages of 10 and 34 die from homicide at 13 times the rate of white Americans, according to researchers from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the Justice Department. Just because Trump was president then doesn't mean the CDC and the Justice Department is doing what he wants them to do. These are numbers that are factual. Community requests also determine police deployment. Yeah. Where they're called the most, where the most crime happens, and the most urgent requests often come from law-abiding residents of high-crime neighborhoods. Ding, 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 and there you have it. And there you have it. An elderly resident in the Mount Hope neighborhood of the Bronx once described to me her fear of entering her building lobby since it was so often occupied by trespassing youth hanging out and selling drugs. The only time she felt safe when law enforcement was around, as long as she saw the police. She told me, everything is okay. You can come down and get your mail and talk to decent people. Improve, don't abolish police. Of course. This sentiment is echoed in dozens of police community meetings I've attended. Though they always want to improve quality of policing, they also want to improve quality of policing. The percent of black respondents in a 2015 Gallup poll who wanted more police in their community was more than twice as high as the percent of white respondents who said the same. Blacks in these inner cities are asking for police protection and help at twice the rate of white respondents. They're not saying, we know you hunt us, black people, so twice as many of us want you involved. It makes no sense. Activists who speak to disbanded police departments will have to explain these to law-abiding residents that they will, in essence, just have to fend for themselves. Yeah. How would you like to be in places like Portland and Seattle and the other places? New York City, I hear, is a disaster. Self-defense may be understandable if the police were engaging in an epidemic of shooting unarmed black men and women, as we now hear daily. But there is no such epidemic. For the last 5 years, the police have fatally shot about 1,000 civilians annually, the vast majority of whom were armed or otherwise dangerous. Black people account for 23% of those shot and killed by police, and they are about 13% of the U.S. population. Doesn't sound like they're hunting them, since the vast majority of crime calls in these inner cities go to black areas, or black majority areas, I should say, to be more accurate. As of the June 22nd update, the Washington Post database, Washington Post, who's as progressive and leftist as they come, database of fatal shootings showed 14 unarmed black victims and 25 unarmed white victims in 2019. The database does not show those killed by other means like George Floyd. The number of unarmed black shootings is down 63% from 2015. Let me read that again. The number of unarmed black shooting victims is down 63% from 2015 when the database began. The Washington Post database. Now, this is the thing that really burns my ass. And I hate to use that kind of language, but it does. This is the hypocrisy of these race baiters. This next sentence says it all. There are about 7,300 black homicide victims a year. The 14 unarmed victims in fatal shootings would comprise only 0.2% of that total. That's 1/5 of 1%. They'll say, well, John, there's more than 14. There's more like 30. Okay, we'll double it. So that's 0.4 of 1% of all the black homicide victims per year are by police. And they're not all unjustified. Look at the 7,300 black homicide victims. They don't give a good damn about them. This is about making money. This is about clicks online. And all the media does it. Because who wants to hear about black on black crime? Doesn't make any money. Doesn't lead to clicks, which leads to more money. Ideally, officers would never take anyone's life in the course of their duty. Do you think these officers really want to kill people? Honestly and truly. But given the number of street arrests they make each year, around 10 million, and the number of deadly weapon attacks on officers, around 27 per day, The number of deadly attacks on officers in just 2/3 of the nation's police department. That's just 2/3, according to 2014 analysis. It is not clear that these 1,000 civilian shooting deaths suggest that law enforcement is out of control. Like they said, it's gone down 63% from 2015. Don't abolish the police. It didn't work for 1960 communes, and it won't work for us. That's true. Now, I'm a former city councilman. I was a city councilman here in the city in upstate New York from 2000 to 2007. I've been off of city council, obviously, for 13 years. There are progressives, leftists in this area, organizations that want police reorganization. Yeah, there can be improvements made in all police departments. It's like human beings. Nobody's perfect. And they say up here that we're hunting black people to put them in this county that I live in, Broome County in upstate New York, just to put them in a jail to die. In fact, when I ran as a Republican 2 years ago and was endorsed by the police union, and always been endorsed by the police, they went around many of the people on this side of town, the north side in downtown Binghamton, where the district is, come from New York City. A lot of transplants. But there's been a flip over of a lot of people from my 20 plus years in business as a convenience store owner. And they go, look, he's right with the police. He hates black people. They're hunting us. And they're from New York City. And they've been told this since the day when they've been born. And they believe it. It's wrong. It's wrong. Cops are desperate for more hands-on tactical training, de-escalation practice, and techniques to control stress. Of course they are. Federal support should focus on such practical training to ensure that officers are prepared for the difficult encounters they face daily. Reducing police resources will ultimately result in poor service to law-abiding residents of high-crime areas. That's who's going to suffer. Low-income people, and by disproportionately amount, by far, black people, will be hurt with defunding police. Officers without backup will be more stressed and at higher risk of poor judgment. Absolutely. Response times will increase. Somebody's breaking into your apartment, or somebody's beating the crap out of your husband or boyfriend, and you call the police. 15 minutes is a long time to wait when your boyfriend or your husband's getting his ass kicked, all right? Cash start agencies will train less, not more, while lower pay scales will result in less qualified recruits. It's like anything else. You get what you pay for. Yeah, the property taxes are high in New York State. One of the reasons why I finally had to sell my business. But these things still have to be done. They still have to be paid for. A reduced police presence in minority neighborhoods will claim more black lives. Ding, 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 ding. And they don't give a good damn about that. They don't care. This is about virtue signaling from these organizations, and many of them make a damn fine living race baiting. Makes big money. Big money. One of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter just bought $2-3 million worth of properties. Yeah, it pays pretty good, apparently. When officers back off of proactive policing under accusations of racism, violence shoots up. This was the case in cities recently examined by Harvard Economics. Harvard, one of the most progressive places in the United States. After investigations opened up into a media-grabbing instance of police used deadly force in Baltimore, Chicago, Cincinnati, Ferguson, Missouri, and Riverside, California, there was almost 900 excess homicides and almost 34,000 excess felonies, their study found. Cops pull back from discretionary activity. questioning a suspicious person on a known drug corner, for example, and simply drove on by. Such stops are voluntary. Cops are not mandated to take them, and they won't. Now they're put themselves at risk that God knows what can happen, and you could go to jail and your life is destroyed, and so is your family's. In Chicago, the Harvard Economics found the number of police-civilian interactions decreased by almost 90% in the month after the investigation of deadly force was announced. In Riverside, interactions decreased by 54%. St. Louis, self-initiated police activities declined by 46%. This woman is screaming at the person that's protecting many of her people. When I say her people, I mean black people. It's ridiculous. This is one of the most amazing sleight of hands I've ever seen in my life. It's just amazing to me. By contrast, in cities where incidents of police overuse of deadly force were under investigation but did not go viral or grab national attention, homicides and total crime went down. Police officers were not afraid to continue policing. Yeah, you're driving around. Why should I put my ass at risk? This guy's doing whatever he's doing on the corner, selling this, selling that, whatever's going on. Unless I get a call, I'm not getting out of my car. I don't blame him. This year, this is 2020 now, May 31st, Chicago had its deadliest day in 60 years. By the way, 60 years ago, John Kennedy was president, okay? Give you an idea how long ago that was. Over the course of that weekend, 25 people were killed and another 85 shot. That's 110. The reason an overmatched police force was overwhelmed by the rampant looting and upheavals and had little deterrent presence on the ground. There's suddenly this vacuum that opens up, said Max Kapustin, the senior research director at a local crime lab, and you'll see an absurd amount of carnage. Bad cops of all races must be removed, of course. But the overwhelming majority of officers are in their jobs because of people like that Mount Hope resident who looks out her window hoping to see the police nearby. It is these vulnerable residents who will be most hurt if the funded police activities have their way. And then explains Heather McDonald's background. Now, I want to make a couple of comments here at the end. I know it's true in this area, and I know it's true in many other big cities. We're a medium-sized city, 45,000 odd people here in upstate New York. A lot of the organizations that want all this cutback on police and more social workers and all this reform and blah, 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 they do not want to eliminate the police. They want to be the police. They tried it here in this town, in Binghamton, New York. Human rights commissions, but they had no subpoena power. And they'll be coming up as soon as the Democrats take over the city council, which will be very soon. They're going to start accusing people they don't like of God knows what. And if you don't show up, the guys with the guns, i.e. police, come and handcuff you and take you in. That's what they want. They don't hate guns. They want to control the guns. They want to be the police so they can go after their perceived enemies. It's about power and control. Do not let anyone tell you differently. Now, I'm going to get a lot of grief for this video, and I really don't care because I know I'm right and I know I'm truthful. That's one of the reasons, actually, out of the 10 reasons, I sold my business. It's time to stop doing business in this area because they'll be coming after me. They've already destroyed my business with lies and slander, racist nonsense. Basically, my entire financial future is in the toilet. but I still wouldn't back down. And people that confront them, people who will not back down to these progressive leftist nut bars, are targets because they're scared of us that say no or don't go along with your craziness. Reform, yes. Make things better, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. You'll get no better champion than that than I. But just to go after the police, and these are the people that are protecting people, especially in the black community. After seeing those statistics, you can still tell me that you want to defund the police and reduce the police, then frankly, you have a mental problem. And I would seek counseling and or medication. And until the next time, folks, goodbye and good luck.